The first time I went there, I had to close my eyes because it is so overwhelming. Cars and buses and bicycles and pedestrians and tuk-tuks and cows and elephants and stray dog, and they're all just, there's no sidewalk. They're all just amongst everyone. And like, I mean, there are accidents, but like not as many as you would think. And it's like this beautiful organized dance that you just can't ever figure out.
Welcome to the Where Have You Been podcast. I'm your host, Bill Ream, and each week on the pod, I have conversations with incredible guests from all walks of life. Expect to hear funny, crazy, emotional, life-changing, and even sometimes life-threatening stories and experiences that will entertain and inspire you. As always, I appreciate your likes, subscriptions, ratings, and reviews wherever you are listening. It doesn't sound like much, but it truly helps the pod get to the ears of more people who may enjoy it. And check out the website, whybpodcast.com, for links to the socials where you can find pictures from the guests and their stories, and also buy merch if you're so inclined. Now let's get to this week's episode. Thank you for being here. It is another wonderful episode of the Where Have You Been podcast. I am your host, Bill Ream, and I think this would possibly be the first time that I could say I have, and dare I say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I have a very prominent business expert with us today. I have Lisa as my guest, and I will let you introduce yourself. Lisa, who are you?
Yeah, thanks. I'm Lisa Talbot. I'm the founder of True North PM Solutions, which are business services that helps business with their AI and automation needs. But I'm also an avid traveler. I have two kiddos, 6 and 4, and a husband. And I think we had some stat that we traveled 6 countries in like 7 years. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you because you have definitely done at least as much traveling as I have from what I can tell. And I think, and you even kind of shared with me a little tidbit of a story or two when we first met each other on Podmatch. I've mentioned that place a few times on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm excited to hear those and then whatever else you have. But before we go further, can you talk a little bit more about the business and then like where can people find that? What's the website and such?
Yeah, sure. The business is, like I said, True North PM Solutions. You can find me on at our website, truenorthpmsolutions.com, or I'm on LinkedIn as well. I help scaling businesses, so businesses that are growing, whether they're kind of mom and pop shops or medium-sized businesses with as they start to scale, trying to automate and use AI in their system automation. So it's kind of that buzzword right now, AI, which can be really scary. And I try to break it down for businesses and really try to get them ready for futurizing their business. And sometimes the systems that they were using when they had 3 to 5 employees, when they start scaling and add 15 to 20, they become really clunky and time consuming. And so I help break those down and simplify them and add some automation and AI to them.
And where did this come from for you?
I was in corporate America for 20 years or so doing process implementations for Fortune 500 companies. So I was using a lot of SaaS solutions and did some, process improvements, and just have been interested in technology from the get-go. So I feel like I was tech savvy and then have just learned and upskilled myself into an area. Had an opportunity to step out of corporate America. I thought I could use, the skills that I had from dealing with, a lot of stakeholders and a lot of different scenarios, and really bring that down to, business owners and apply it there, at a smaller scale.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I asked the question because for different reasons, I used to be the director of our local chamber of commerce, and I deal with businesses every day in my
Mm-hmm.
role with the bank that I work for now. But I've always had a passion, and I've been a small business owner, so I've always had a passion for watching and helping small and medium sized businesses grow. And so I I appreciate what you're doing. So I think it's really
Oh,
cool.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm learning every day. It's really rewarding and challenging at the same time, but I'm having a lot of fun and it's bringing a lot of joy to me and my client. So that's that's a win-win.
that's great. So it's not work. It's just something you happen to do that you get paid for.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. So you mentioned to me kind of transitioning towards travel. You mentioned to me that you did a study abroad, which you'll probably talk about at some point. But was that really your first taste of travel, or did you start traveling at a younger age, whether it was your family or anything else? How did that start?
Yeah, so I grew up in northern Michigan and we would do a spring break every, spring. We'd take the pop-up camper, go to Gulf Shores, Alabama, sometimes to Florida. Excuse me. So it started kind of at a young age. And then I was fortunate enough to my sister, who was older, studied abroad in Spain, and my parents and I went to go visit her for a spring break when I was in high school. So that's where I think it originally started. And then, yeah, then I went my own way and did my own study abroad in Australia for 6 months and got to visit most of the east coast of Australia. And then, did a lot of domestic traveling as well, through college and after college, kind of solo traveled. And then when I met my husband, after we got married, we just started kind of our international travel. And we've continued it even as we've had kids. We took my, at the time, 9 month old to Australia. We have family there. And so we went when she was about 9 months old. And then we have taken our kids twice now to India on two separate occasions and to Italy. So we haven't stopped, even though we've had kids.
Really fantastic. And so was the trip to Spain then, you said that was kind of where it all started. Was it sort of, do you remember there being like an aha, like, wow, I have to do this? Like
I think
traveling
it
more,
was more, I think it was more in my Australia trip when I was
Hmm.
more by myself in Spain. I think it was, because I was with my parents still, there was just this like follow along,
Hmm.
mentality where I didn't really have to make decisions. I just, you know, tagged along and, could use some of my high school Spanish sometime or help out with a few, words or things. I think it was really when I went to Australia that when I started planning my own trips and, the research before the trips and that kind of thing that really sparked the the need or the want to travel more, because I think the research part is really what gets you excited about what are you going to go see, and then that kind of opens up the world, right? You only learn so much in your history classes and whatnot, and so
Hmm.
I like to do that research. And then as a project manager by trade, I love putting itineraries together and, trying to figure out like the best places to go and, you know, getting, and then when we get there, then it's like I've made all my decisions and I can really enjoy it because I feel like the decisions have been made and I just have to sit back and kind of relax and enjoy my itinerary.
Yeah. Kind of a weird question. Maybe not weird, but when you consider like, okay, we need to take another trip, where are we going to go? Like, does it almost in your mind, because you've traveled internationally now a number of times, do you automatically go there, or do you try to make sure that you get some trips around the United States as well?
Honestly, I look at Google Flights and look there's if you haven't been on Google Flights, there's a way you can like pick your airports and then explore, and then it kind of gives the prices. You can put in there like I want to take a 1 week or 2 week travel in the next 6 months, or you can say 2 weeks in November, and you can kind of scroll around the world and see the different prices for tickets. So that kind of narrows in where I'm going.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a, I don't do tips, but well, typically we throw some in here and there, but one of my favorite tips, I think I've only mentioned it once or twice on the podcast actually, but this, what you're saying kind of brings it up for me, is there's a website called going.com. And I mean, some of the fares that I'm getting, because I put in my local airport, which is obviously
Mhm.
Pittsburgh, but Cleveland's not too far. And I have family up near Buffalo. It's where I'm from. So I put in those three airports. And so every day I'm getting different, whether they're mistake fares or just, they just, whatever the airline needs to book this flight. For example, today I found a 300 and I think it was $60 round trip flight from Cleveland to Ireland.
Oh, wow.
I mean, how do you, that's just unheard of. I
Hmm.
think the regular price on that ticket was like $900. So it's like, and it's cool because you have to book it pretty quickly, but the travel times are in the future. So it's not
Right.
like last minute travel, it's just last minute purchase. So
Hmm.
yeah, I got to get them to sponsor the show. So, but no, I think that's awesome. And hopefully, I'm sure you have some great stories you can tell. This is the point of the podcast where I will ask you, and I say this to everybody, you can do however you'd like. You can list the places. You've already mentioned a lot of them, or if there's just a place you want to dive in, maybe your college, you know, travel study abroad, wherever you want to go with it. But Lisa, where have you been?
I have been, like I said, I listed some of them: Spain, Australia, Italy, Ireland, London, Scotland, probably 30 of this 50 states, and India twice, and then Japan. And I, my heart is in Italy. That is where I always go back to. I'm always looking for flights there.
I love it.
It's probably, I've been there twice. And even in the last, we went there for Thanksgiving last year for my husband's 40th birthday. And thinking about spring break next year, I already looked at tickets because it's cheaper to fly to Italy than to go to Florida for spring break.
And that's sort of a travel hack, right? Go somewhere out of the country on Thanksgiving because that's our holiday, not theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out really well. And it is a different trip in Europe when you go for Thanksgiving because it's colder, right? Like
Hmm.
there isn't a ton of tourists, and people are surprised that you're there. But we had a really great time and got to see a lot. Venice was still really packed. That's gotten, more busy every year, but it's still just, such a unique spot that if we go to Italy, we're probably going to go to Venice every time just because it is so unique.
Absolutely. Do you know? So you've been there a number of times, then at least a couple of
Twice.
times, right? So I need to write this down and remember it. But there's an island off like the main Venice, and I cannot think of the name of it. But that's where we stayed when we went a couple of years ago, and it was just beautiful. The boat taxis are so much fun, and it's such a
Yeah.
cool, unique way to see the architecture and the area. And like, I would almost want to ride the boat taxis just to do it, even if I didn't have somewhere to go.
Yeah, we did actually. We ended up, this last time, we ended up getting caught in Paris for a snowstorm that closed the airport while we were on the plane getting de-iced.
Oh
And
no.
after we already had sat on the plane for numerous hours. And so we got stuck in Paris. So we ended up getting to Venice about 40 hours later than expected. And so we were, the next day, you can, just get a day or two taxi, water taxi. And we just sat on it. We started and ended, we did the whole
Mm-hmm.
route. My kids just slept on our laps, and we just had a front row seat to all of, what Venice had to offer. And it was honestly like better than a tour boat. It
Mm-hmm.
was really cheap because we had, I think it was like 15 euros for 2 days of water taxi rides. So we could use it and jump on and jump off because it is just, we did use a private boat, which is even cooler because it feels like they're the James Bond boats,
Oh
that
wow.
those wood boats. And we did get a private one because we were running late to our jewelry making class on Murano Island. But yeah, it is. It's really cool, all the transportation that you can get familiar with when traveling that, US just doesn't really have the infrastructure like other countries do.
Yeah. And I will say when we were there, I've only been to Venice once, but it was very crowded, and I just it is what it is, I guess, right? But
Hmm.
we were there in June, which was a perfect time of year to go. But yeah, it was very, very, very crowded, but so beautiful, and I absolutely would like to go back there again. I think, like you, if I do go back to Italy, which I will, I'll probably make a stop there on the way to wherever I'm
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
Yep. I recommend it for sure.
Any is while we're in Venice, is there? Do you have any like lasting memories or stories that stick out to you from being there either of the times, besides being stuck on a tarmac and getting there 40 hours late?
Yeah. Yeah, there was the cool thing about Venice is like the cicchettis. So the cicchettis are kind of like tapas that people are probably more familiar with in Spain, and you can kind of bar hop around Venice and get these, they're just like little bites for €1, maybe 2, but they're all homemade and they're really delicious. And so we did that the first time and ended up stumbling upon, a couple of them just down by where the gondolas are made, and that was my favorite one. And so the next day at the where we were staying, I said, "Oh, I want to go back." And come to find out, we had like stumbled upon like the vote, Yelp or the travel lot, place was the best cicchettis that we had like stumbled upon. So that was really fun to, without even trying, you get such good food there that you just, um I think that's how Italy is. Like everyone has given me recommendations like you should try this restaurant, you should try that. And really, I mean, in all of our travels, we might have a direction that we're going, but it really is, just finding hole in the wall places that are just amazing.
Yeah, sometimes I think places like that are even better because they're not touristy. It's
Mhm.
and if you see, especially if you go in and you see locals eating there, it's got to be good. So yeah, I like that a lot. Where else in Italy have you been?
Yeah, we've been to Florence twice. We went down to Siena. And then this last time we did an agro-tourism stay, which was really cool. And then we've done Cinque Terre, and then we've done Lake Bolsena. So and Lake Como. So we kind of the first route we kind of stayed up in the north and did Venice, Florence, Lucca, Cinque Terre, and Lake Como. And then the second time we did more Venice, Florence, Lake Bolsena, which is halfway between Rome and Florence, and did that route. So we've always liked Florence. We haven't done Rome yet. We were a little chicken to try it with kids this time around, but I think when they get a little bit older, that will definitely be on our radar.
It's funny that you and I have both been to Italy twice, and the only place we have in common is Venice.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, the first time we went, we did Rome. We did a day trip up to Naples, but we basically stayed in Rome because then we took a trip. Well, actually, it's the last part of our leg of a trip. We started in Greece and
Oh,
and
cool.
and ended in Rome. And then the second time we went, we started in Venice, and then we went up to Milan and Bologna. So,
Mm-hmm.
which are all in their own way just so beautiful. But yeah, and that's the reason why I want to go back so bad is because there's so many other places that are from what I understand, so beautiful and so incredible and so unique in their own way. And I haven't seen them yet. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I really don't think you can go wrong in Italy. And I think that's where, uh, that's why I think I also want to go back is I haven't had a time where I thought we shouldn't have done that or that was a waste of time.
yeah. Well,
I'll tell you this when we were in Siena, and the people are so nice. And I feel like even with the language barrier, uh, and I think they get a bad rap. I think they get, I think sometimes people say, oh, Europeans don't like American uh, tourists. But I think if you really kind of try to understand their culture and try to like learn or, experience it, I haven't had a bad experience. We went down to Siena. We had taken this beautiful wine tour in Tuscany and had a stay over in Siena. We took the public transport, a bus into Siena and walked around Siena. It's this cool little town that is known for its like horse races. And so the town is kind of divided based on like the horse race affiliate. So how you affiliate with the horse races, which is kind of funny and
is
kind of
it
a
almost like neighborhood sort of, or is that something?
yeah, yeah, but even like it gets pretty intense, I guess, around race time where like families like don't even talk to each
Oh
other if
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they,
I've heard of this. Yes.
like if the fiance or someone is um or someone is from the other side, they like don't even talk. They might, they might even go stay somewhere else. It's very intense. And so it's just like a fun culture to kind of, experience and think about. And so we jumped on the bus to head back. We had to grab our bags and head to the train station to go to Cinque Terre. So we took the same bus home, but it was like it had changed its route at some point during the day, and we were going in the wrong direction. And the bus line stopped, and the bus driver was like, "You have to get out." And we're like, this is not our stop. And they're like, "Well, this is where it ends." And there's like nothing around, right? Like there's this little there happens to be this little cafe. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're trying to get a cab, but we don't even know where we are or what a cab number is. This is pre, Uber. And even in some of these small towns, you wouldn't even have Uber necessarily. And there's like four ladies just having their afternoon spritz at this cafe. And we're trying, so we order a spritz and ask them, do you know of a cab company or how we can get back on, like they don't speak any Italian, or excuse me, they don't speak any English. We don't speak any Italian. And so we're trying to use hand motions and, the map on our phone and like taxi. And so we get a hold of a taxi company, but we can't communicate with the cab driver.
Gosh.
So one of the women have to help us, but she doesn't even, this is just their neighborhood hangout. She actually doesn't even know the address. So she leaves with our phone, and we're like, "Oh, well, there goes that. I guess we might as well just have our spritz." And she comes back and is like, gives us the five. And, my husband like kind of goes up to like high five her, like, I don't know, is this, a thing? And hands the phone. And sure enough, this cab comes, and she, gives us the big, "Come on, that's you, that's you." And I'm trying to, pay. And the woman that's the proprietor hands me two spritzes to go and doesn't let me pay anything. I'm trying to overpay them and tip them, and they won't let me do any of it. And we're saying, ciao, ciao, like thank you, in any form that we can. And so that memory always just sticks in my head quite a bit because of just the human side of traveling, and how people, it just gets to the root of like, with all the things going on in the world, there are good people in the world too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a common thread on this podcast, and I love that part of it. I love that we touch on it at least probably half of the episodes, just the human element and the way that we can touch each other's lives throughout, or like through travel, like no other way.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. Do you, and I ask this question a lot, but do you, when you guys travel, like, so that was sort of out of necessity that happened, that you interacted with them. But when you travel to other countries, if you can communicate with people, do you make it a point to try to at least have conversations with people, or are you more reserved and sort of do your own thing?
No, we're always trying to, talk about, we really enjoy food. And so usually my husband's trying to ask about, the how the food came about, or where is the food coming from. Um, we always try to do kind of local tours as much as we can,
Hmm.
just so that we can, get not the big stories or whatever. We want like the small intimate stories or the people. It's obviously easier going in to English speaking countries, but we try our best and try to, understand where we are in the culture of it. We went to it, we've been to a few places in Italy that and this is probably well known, they're called dying cities, where their population is not increasing, right? They're getting older, and there's no population coming, so they're called dying cities.
Hmm.
And I think most people probably hear about it because there's all the advertisements that say Americans can buy and invest in this city for $1 and get citizenship or whatever.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it's really interesting when you start talking, to people, and in those cities it's interesting because they kind of look at you like, how did you find us?
Hmm.
We stumbled upon a winemaker that actually exports his wine to the US, and he is a one-man operation.
Wow.
And he has this I he had this um cellar that was 300 years old. They preserved it to put the road over it. So the road went over it. His cellar still went under, because that's how they used to keep things, cold. And, the population was at about 150 people. So it's really interesting. And the stories and the things that you can find when you're talking to people. I think, if you ever go to Ireland, I mean, those people can really talk and tell you everything that you did and did not want to know.
Jeez. Tell me, for example.
Oh yeah, we went to Ireland. That was kind of our first trip abroad together.
How long ago was that?
That was in 2016. It was right after we had gotten married.
Okay.
And we got, you're jet lagged, because it's a red eye flight. And we get off the bus, and we're just gonna go to our hotel and drop our bags off because it's like 9 a.m. in the morning, right? We're gonna go sightsee a little bit. We can't even check in till about 3. And I have a map because um, I have a map trying to get to where we want to go. I know all your listeners are going to be like, why don't you have Google? Well, like, I just didn't. My husband has the Google. I did the map. And so it was very clear that I was a tourist. And so the first person, we're off on this bus, and I'm trying to, acclimate to what direction I should be heading. And a gentleman comes up, and it's my first trip abroad. I'm thinking like, oh, I got to be careful, pickpocketers, and I'm putting up all the shields. And he just very nicely was like, where are you trying to go? And I was like, oh, so off, I was so,
Taken aback.
yeah, taken back. And he's like, oh, I'm headed that way. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he like walked us, you know, um I mean, he walked us and was like, "Okay, your turn is this way. I'm headed this way." And it was probably 3 or 4 blocks, and he told us, his whole life story, and like all the things that we should see in Dublin, and don't go and see this. And we just, in like 4 blocks, we got just an earful of everything we could possibly want to know, and we haven't slept all night. So we were just kind of like zombies, like, oh, okay, thanks. What? Yeah, sure. But, also very friendly people that were willing to help us when we did get lost or needed some help.
Yeah. Did you end up taking any of that advice, or did it kind of just go in one ear and out the other because you were so tired?
Yeah, we ended up not going to the Guinness factory,
Oh.
and which I don't know if I regret or not regret, but we didn't do it because they said it was, too expensive. It was overran. It was, they didn't have anything good to say about it. So we didn't go. We did end up going to the Jameson distillery tour down like south near Cork. And we did really enjoy that. So even though we've done quite a few, you know, tours of that nature, distillery tours, even here in Kentucky, and uh, different distilleries, we did really enjoy the Jameson one.
What's the best one you've done, in your opinion?
I'm gonna say the Woodford Reserve Bourbon Tour, um, down in Kentucky, is probably my favorite distillery tour. Um, Only because, like, I'm a big bourbon fan, and the smokestacks have L&G, which is mine and my husband's initials,
Oh, nice.
and it's like really good bourbon. So, and they do it really well there. So I'm gonna put my money on that one. But if I would go to the Jameson one, and we only spent about 36 hours in uh, Edinburgh, and I've heard they have really good distillery tours there. And we also have been to Tasmania, Australia, and they're getting into like a
Mm.
whiskey down there. And they have some pretty good spirits there. Um, the Australian tasting experience wasn't, it was more laid back in like a good way. Like here, I think the ones that we're used to is like you get a drink or you get a flight and you can taste them. And Australia is more like have a drink or have it versus like tasting it against three or four of them. So it's just a little bit different. But um, and the Jameson one definitely gives you an American whiskey and is like, try this and which one is better. Kind of like if you remember like the Coke and Pepsi
Oh yeah.
commercials, like blind tastings.
Uh huh. Yeah. Well, and if you go to the Jameson one again, oh shucks, you got to go back to Ireland again.
Yeah.
Darn
Yep.
it. So when you do stuff like that, do you also do like walking tours when you go places?
Yeah, my favorite is to do like a history food tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you usually walk around and you usually go to like three or four places and you just get acquainted with the layout of the city. So we did this. We took a trip to Spain with some friends and we started out in Barcelona and then went to Madrid and Granada. And when we went to Barcelona, we didn't do that kind of tour. We did the Sagrada Familia, we did the coastline, we did some other things. Then we got to Madrid. The first thing we did was this walking food tour, and it kind of put us in a circle, kind of right around where we were staying, and gave us the history of the palace. And then we'd stop and have a bite, and then learn about the history. And they would only take you to the places that were family ran for like a century. They had this whole plaque. And that was like, I think the reason why I loved Madrid so much was because I felt so attached to these, places because I knew so much about them and I could, go out of my accommodation and know exactly like, oh yeah, if I turn left and go right, I know like where I'll be. And so we always do try to do some of the walking tours or the some tour of some sort just because I think you gain so much more, which I in my earlier years probably would have scuffed at it because there was a time when it was like just getting over there was like the expense, right? So you're trying to cut expenses somewhere else and so sometimes you didn't do the tours. And we did the but we went back when we went to Florence. My husband wanted to go see the David again, and I was like, "Oh, really?" Like that kind of surprised me. And we had kids at the time coming with us, and I was like, "Will they even enjoy it?" And we did it. And so we got a guide, and we mostly did the guide just to get in quickly and not have to wait in line.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned so much and like so much appreciation for the art. And, I could take pieces of it and articulate it to my kids. That was better than previously. I had just chat GPT'd, how do you talk about the David with a 5-year-old, to try to get the story. So I always encourage, or, at the bare minimum, get like the audio tours just so that you get some appreciation. But I think the tour guides, when they're local too, just have this passion and, that just make you like fall in love with whatever you're touring.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's one of those things that once we started doing those, I we started to try to do them in almost every place that we went. And like I wish that we had started doing those things sooner. And
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe like you, I don't know, but our idea early on with large travel, especially international travel, was like, okay, we're going to do it ourselves, and we're going to make these plans, and we're going to find these places, and they're not going to all be the touristy places, but we're just going to do it. We're going to walk around on our own. And why? Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
If there's somebody who can show you, and again, like you said, you learn so much, and you do start to feel connection to the places. And even like when we went to the Vatican, yeah, that was one of the other places that I went when we were in Italy, was the Vatican, and we did one of the audio tours when we were walking around and learning so much about, like you said, the art. And I'm not even that much into art, but I was so blown away by some of the information that I was learning that it meant so much. And that, that I'm the kind of guy who, oh, I didn't even know all this. There was so much. I know there's so much history there, right? But now I got to buy
Right.
a book. So,
Right.
and I do that a lot of times. We'll go somewhere and I don't know much, and then I learn a lot, and I'm like, okay, now I need to buy a book. I need to learn more.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Where to go next? So, you've been so many other places, but to give some due respect to Italy, and you've mentioned a few stories there, but any other stories in Italy that stand out to you that are must tells? I like to throw these words out, like these emotion words, like this was so hilarious or this was so scary, like those
Mhm.
types of things. Anything jump out at you? I know I put people on the spot, but
Yeah, I don't have like any scary moments in really any of our travel that like come to mind. I think
that's a
we've
good
been
thing.
really fortunate in that aspect. Delays, like stayovers, like, getting sick on the plane.
Oh,
My daughter got sick for like 8 hours on a plane unexpectedly. Those are all, I think, part of the beauty of traveling. So,
yeah.
yeah, as I think about, kind of going back to what you were saying about getting like the local perspective, I think, you know, Italy and all of our travels is we try to leave enough open space to accommodate for like recommendations by the locals. So when we can communicate to them, like where's your favorite place to eat? What do you recommend? Like we have that flexibility to do, what they recommend as well. So I think just trying to talk to the locals is like my key to success in traveling too.
Have you ever made such a strong connection with someone that you almost feel like you're friends when you're done? Or I've talked to people on the podcast who actually still talk to people, whether it's just on Facebook or whatever. But any just like super strong connections, even with other travelers that you've met along the way.
We haven't yet, that you say that. We have had people say, "Oh, do you know so and so from Wisconsin?" And I'm like, "No, sorry." Like, and they've gotten their Facebook out to show me a picture of their friend that lives in Wisconsin, and I still don't know them. We've had some like small world, where we are traveling and they see a shirt that we're wearing. This happened to be in Italy, and we're in Lake Como, and we were staying at this uh, the Britannia, which it was mostly for British uh, travelers. I think that we met a lot of British travelers at that accommodation, and my husband was wearing a Milwaukee Brewers shirt,
Mm.
and this woman stared at him all the way down the hall. And so he said, ciao. And she's like, do you live in Milwaukee? And he was like, I mean, we're from Wisconsin. And come to find out, her husband worked at the same place that my husband did, 30 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
They lived in Milwaukee. They could talk about some of the same, people, that were at the company at the time. So we've had some, that was kind of a cool acquaintance.
I love it. I love it.
When we got stuck in Paris, we actually got my sister and my mom were there at the same time. So we ended up seeing them in Paris.
Oh gosh.
So that was kind of a funny, coincidence, just like fun things like that, that we were somewhere, I think we were in Barcelona, and uh, I wanted a hat from one of the vendors, and come to find out, like the vendor owner actually was from India, and so my husband speaks Punjabi, and they were actually communicating in Punjabi, instead of Spanish.
Oh
Like you
wow.
can just find people kind of all over. Uh, that makes the world smaller than you think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But you have to talk. You have to talk and
Yes.
you have to listen. Otherwise,
Yep.
you're not going to get it. And I just feel like you only know what you know, but there's so much more that you don't know. And yes, you got to take chances. And I think you can learn so much more in a short conversation with someone than you can reading articles on Google. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's awesome. Any other, I'm going to use one more emotion. Not, I don't necessarily want to say life changing, but like just some really beautiful moments, whether it's there was a sunset when we were here or something that you remembered or maybe even just seeing a piece of art and learning a story or anything that kind of jumps out at you that was like just moving in any of your travels? Not doesn't have to be Italy.
Mhm. Yeah, I love sunsets. So I've probably seen, I don't know if there's been just one, that I
Mm-hmm.
could say, but just as you were asking that question, I think Australia really was maybe the most life-changing place. I was 19 years old, traveled across, a huge ocean by myself, and really kind of found my voice in some extent of like asking for what I really needed, not just like going with what, you know, I mean, I would go with the flow pretty well, but I just kind of learned to stand up for myself, was able did some solo traveling and then also some group traveling, and I just remember that just being I was almost scared to come home because I felt like the person that I had like transformed into as this independent person, was somehow connected to being in Australia. But, it is how do you I'm still independent now. So it wasn't because of that, but I just feel like that was the learning that I had um at that time in my life that I thought, like felt pretty life changing. I didn't necessarily stick up for myself in, certain situations, and I was, proving, to myself that I was capable of, certain things. And so that's the one that rings the bell for me.
Yeah. When you went, did you go with other students from your same university? Like did you know people that were going as well, or did you make friends when you were there?
Both. I knew a couple people that were going. I was in Sydney. I knew someone from that was going to Melbourne. And so I was able to connect with some people. And then I met a lot of people while I was there and joined different clubs. So I ended up joining the outdoors club mostly,
Mm-hmm.
and doing different hikes with them and did a camp out. Um, where I was like I rented all this equipment. And if you've ever been camping, like, there's a lot of tricks for all the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you rent it, you don't necessarily know like what you're getting into. And we arrived at this campsite like after dark.
Oh, God.
We may have had a beer or two on the way there. And I just couldn't figure this out. And I was the only American on this trip. And these people were like backpackers. I was more of like I said, we would do the pop up to Gulf Shores. Like I'd done some car camping. Like the people in this group were
Avid.
making cakes at a campfire. And
My
I was like
gosh.
peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? And so I was like, I need some help. I do not know how to do this tent. And I kind of just like, again, didn't know how to say that in this group. And uh, someone actually tripped over my tent and was like, hey, why is this tent not? And I was like, oh, I need some help. And so, you learn to ask for help when you need it. And, uh, I had we were discussing plans for the next day, like do you want to, people were going to go rock climbing and hiking and all these different activities. And I said, is anybody scared of the you have like 9 of the 10 most poisonous things
Yeah,
here.
right.
And I just got laughed out of the fire circle because they were like, oh man, if I saw something poisonous I would run to it because I've never seen it.
Jeez.
So I don't know if that put me at ease or not, but I went with it, and we ended up going on this like pretty crazy hike where we ended up having to like forge this river and put our packs on our heads and
Oh my
like
gosh.
things that I would, you know, really think twice about, be, 22 years later. But yeah, so I met some really cool people while I was there.
That's cool. And what's funny about, I mean, I don't know if funny is the right word, but when you're saying that about being like trepidatious about asking for help, were most of them they were Australians, they were locals.
Yeah.
So I've talked to a couple of people that have spent a significant amount of time in Australia, and they're like, they are the nicest people.
Yeah.
The nicest people I've ever met are in Australia. So I'm sure that they were too, and they would have helped you in a second if you had asked.
Yeah, yep. It was just a matter of asking,
Yeah.
really, and you get better at that.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So was that the only time you've been in Australia?
No, we went back. My sister-in-law and her family and one of my good friends from high school live in Australia, so we actually went back in 2019 to 2020. So we actually came back like in January of 2020,
Right before.
um, right before the pandemic and right during like they had some really bad um, wildfires that didn't impact our trip, but we definitely saw in Melbourne, the smoke and like the haze. And so it didn't impact us, but we were definitely,
Close enough, I guess.
yeah, close enough to where actually the news was very scary, here back at the US to where my family was saying, like, I think you need to leave. And I was like, oh, we're fine. Like, we're far away from it.
Yeah. But maybe you were closer than you thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to mention something because it popped in my head and I almost forgot about it. But my daughter went to school in Prague. I've mentioned it on a number of episodes. My listeners are probably sick of hearing it. But she actually went to school in Prague and for 3 years. And she
Oh, wow.
had a hard time when she first started off making friends. And so we actually challenged her to join groups. And then she made some really great friends, some that she still is friends with today. And so that's definitely like, again, we don't make it a point to do tips, but I think that's a great tip, especially for someone who's maybe a little bit younger. But even if you're not younger, if you're in a different place and you're going to be there for some time, yeah, join a club or a group. And, other people are joining it for the same reason sometimes. And, you can make some great friends. And, you know, it's just a fun little tip. So,
Yeah. It's hard making friends. And so
but a common
any
interest.
chance,
Yeah.
yeah, common interests. You know, even here, I can't remember if, so I live in Madison, Wisconsin, but we come over to Michigan for the summers and spend the summers on the lake. And my husband joins the sailing club, and I join the.
Did I actually lose you or are you still trying to think?
Oh, I'm back. Something happened.
Oh, that was weird.
Yeah, like everything just went black.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
No, I think it was on my end. So I'm like, sorry.
That's all right.
I'm glad that we're still connected though.
Yeah, for sure. You were so he joins the yacht club or the sailing club, whatever that was.
Yeah. So my husband joins the sailing club and I join the running club, and that's how we, socialize, kind of meet friends in places that we don't know, is and also have activities and interests that, are different from each other as well.
Yeah.
So I definitely think, I mean, in life and in travel, if you can join or go towards things of interest of yourself, that you'll find like-minded people that are, doing the same things that you want to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. And even in your home life here, like you said, like you're doing it in Michigan, which is you stay there for a few months every year,
Yeah, about 10
about
weeks.
10 weeks. So even here where I live in Pittsburgh, I have a handful of friends, but I definitely look to get out more and do some more things and socially. And I need to push myself to do that sometimes. So I've definitely looked at like Meetup and things like that to try to find something to do. So yeah, whether you're at home or somewhere else.
Hmm.
Couple more places that I definitely want to touch on before we get to the end of the episode. I haven't really had many people talk about England at all. So I'm interested to know any experiences that you've had there.
In England?
Yeah.
Yeah, England is I mean, I think we think of it as like the crown, or, it's all about the royals, but the countryside is just beautiful. I was lucky enough to what kind of got us there is that I had a good friend living there at the time, and they lived south of London. And so we got to experience, and so we ended up staying in London. We got for like 2 nights. We spent 3 days in kind of downtown London, and Most of the time was spent out kind of in the countryside in Surrey and Guildford, and we made it over to, gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the stones, but
Stone
anyway,
is that's not Stonehenge.
Stonehenge,
Yeah,
yeah, simplest,
it
those
happens.
stones.
Yeah, the big ones.
And so highly recommend it. I mean, we we did the pretty touristy things in London. We did a palace tour, which was really cool. Like things that you'd seen. The kind of unexpected tour we did was the Churchill tour that was like down in the like it was like Churchill's bunker,
Mm.
and the story there was like when the war was over, everyone just left and like everything was just left there. It was like this bomb shelter underneath the like one of the government buildings, and everything was like in its place as if someone just like left for the day of work, and they just like kept it all like that while they were
Oh
making the
wow,
museum.
that's awesome.
And again, not knowing much about I know the American side of Churchill, right? Like the history that we're taught
Mm-hmm.
and shown. And so it was just it was a really neat museum that again I kind of went into it like scuffing about like what could I learn about here, and learned a lot. And it just was like, again, to our point where we're like, oh, now we have to go read more about the Blitz and about, like all these history moments that we memorized, 30 years
Uh-huh.
ago, and try to like piece it together and see what you're actually seeing. And we did, um, and then we did some cool things too. We went to, tea, we went to the cathedral. We got some deal where at the Ritz Carlton where we got like a 3-course meal for, a fraction of the cost. And we had made those reservations, and they had called us 3 times before we even got to London to explain like the dress code, like, oh, you're from America, like we want to ensure the dress code here, because we must be sloppy.
Yeah,
um
what are you insinuating?
and yeah, insinuating. And we were again traveling on a budget, and this was a pretty big expense, even though it was a fraction of what a Ritz Carlton menu would be. And so we were gonna get a bottle of wine, and they came with like this 3-inch binder of a wine book,
Oh
and we were
boy.
just like, okay, is there something under 100,
Mm-hmm.
like and found one that we were like, oh, we know wine, like it wasn't like, so we found a red that we liked, but it was like sandwiched in between like a $1,200 bottle and like a 800 bottle. And we remember like we like showed the line, like this one, like to make sure that we weren't getting the $1,200 wine.
Right.
But it is, when we talk about food, like the Ritz Carlton in London was probably one of the um, best, top 5 dinners that I've ever had. So if
What
you
did
get the
you have? Do you
opportunity,
remember what the meal was?
I don't remember, but I just remember it being so good and the ambiance being just on par. So, when you kind of, you've been to like dinners where you're like, gosh, I just don't think that was like good for the money,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
I never, like, I just remember just being in this like euphoric like la la land afterwards. Like that was just so amazing,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. We did
I forgot where I was going with that one, but
we did one of the most expensive meals we've ever done was, and I remember the date because it was, I believe it actually was Valentine's Day 2020. So obviously again right before the pandemic, and we were in Puerto Rico and we were in San Juan, and we it was this restaurant that was in the bottom of a hotel. I don't remember the name of it, but it was incredible. First time in my life I ever had Wagyu beef. And I mean, it was one of those tastings, like 9 course, 10 course, whatever it was. I only remember the Wagyu because you can't ever forget the first time you have Wagyu if you've had it. But like you said, like it was just such an amazing night. I will never forget the night. I just don't remember the meal specifically. I do
yeah,
remember that there was a family to the right of us, and I'm telling you, this was not cheap. And I mean, hundreds of dollars per person. And they had their kids with them. It's just like,
Oh, wow.
holy cow, those people just dropped $2,000 tonight. Like, it's just crazy. But
Yeah.
I did go back later because it was a special night, because it was Valentine's and they had the special menu. I was able to find the menu online, and I saved a picture of it, so I
Oh,
can go
cool.
back and look and see what I ate. I just don't remember it all. But that's
Yeah.
awesome. How was the food in general in England? Because you hear stories of it's bland, they don't have as much flavor as we do here, and you see like I see shows on YouTube of people who live in England coming here, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much flavor." How was it, like in general, besides that meal?
Yeah, I do think that stereotype holds true. I think what I remember having is a really good Indian meal.
I have actually
And
heard multiple
so,
people say that the Indian food in England is very good.
yeah, it's very good. And they would do these like Sunday roasts, where they like pubs would do a roast, and those were actually really good. But they weren't like spectacular. It was like very like a roast chicken. Like roast chicken is roast chicken. Like, but it was again in like these quaint little pubs, and the ambiance was probably more than the actual food.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I remember about England was I didn't come home aside from the Ritz Carlton being like I have to go back there because I crave this or that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and the last place that I definitely want to get to before we wrap is sounds like a place you have some connection to is India.
Yeah,
Yeah, tell me
we've been to
anything.
India twice.
Okay.
I guess I shouldn't say that. I've been to India 4 times. So we actually got married in India.
Oh wow,
Uh,
that's cool.
so my first time there was 4 days before we got married. If any of your listeners are Punjabi, Punjabi weddings are insane. They're 4 days long. There was 500 people at our wedding. I don't remember maybe 20 of them. So that was kind of a whirlwind week. We ended up spending after our wedding, we did some traveling. We did like the triangle, they call it. So we did Delhi, Agra, Jaipur with some family, and then spent the majority of our time in Amritsar and the Punjab area. So that was kind of my first where I was like, I came back and in the in the O'Hare airport, got like my first Big Mac because I just like needed a hamburger. But yeah, we've been back like 3 or 4 times since then, and every time it gets a little bit easier. It's still pretty hard as a non-speaking traveler there, but it is just like a really beautiful country in the duality of what India brings. And what I mean by that is like it is a developing country, but there are so many things that they have figured out. Like they don't allow plastic bags, and like there's just some um like their feminine care products are free and everywhere, and like they advertise like, oh, $200 for an MRI, where or 200 rupees. 200 rupees is, I don't know,
Oh
$4.
my gosh.
And, like it's the same MRI
Sure.
machine that we're using. And so it's just, but then there's like corruption or, extreme poverty. And, the lights go out sometimes during the day and they have to like, their water isn't always on. So you don't always get water. So like, it's just this, but it is this like beautiful country. And then, just the traffic in itself, it's
Mm-hmm.
like mesmerizing. It's like the first time I went there, I had to close my eyes because it is so overwhelming. Cars and buses and bicycles and pedestrians and tuk-tuks and cows and elephants and stray dog, and they're all just, there's no sidewalk. They're all just amongst everyone. And like, I mean, there are accidents, but like not as many as you would think. And they like, it's like this beautiful organized dance that you just can't ever figure out.
That's so incredible.
And I like joked because it's like, you go the wrong way on a one way, like, because they just don't care. There's like, whatever, I have to, I'm going to go a wrong way on a one way. And then I'm going to honk at the guy or the car coming at me that's going the right way because, like, that's what they do.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So yeah, we've taken the kids back twice now, and each time we've done something different. We try to spend as much time as we can with our family, and then travel as well together. So this last time we went up to Shimla, which is up in the mountains, the Himalayas. It's actually the old British summer capital. So in the summers, Delhi would be extremely hot, and so the British would go up to the mountains, and that's what they called their summer capital. And it was just beautiful. It was just we took this train ride that was like 5 hours up. If you've ever seen Anthony Bourdain, he also takes the same train ride up to Shimla. Got to do some hikes up there, and then come to find out, I don't know if you have morels in Philadelphia, but morel mushrooms are like a hot commodity here in Wisconsin and Michigan. Like, they are a mushroom that you can't cultivate. You can just find them in the forest, and it has to be like the most perfect conditions.
Hmm.
And they sell like $40 an ounce of mushrooms or something like that, ridiculous.
Wow.
And they have morel mushrooms in Shimla, India, that go for about the same price, which is astronomical when you think about the, exchange rate.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I,
So, yeah, I mean, like you said, Italy has a special place just because, we're from there, we have family there. But it's also really a beautiful place to explore and find out, more of the culture. Like, that's the oldest history in some cases that we have, and it's just really remarkable that it doesn't get more attention. For we focus on like Roman Empire and the kind of that history, and there was history in India thousands of years before then.
yeah. And you're not the first person I've talked to that has mentioned that. And I've had guests who've just said that their time in India has just been life changing. And I, I did have one person say, if you go to India and you can't stay for like 3 months, you're not getting enough because there's
Hmm.
so much beauty and so much to see and so much to learn. And so it's one of those places that was never on my list until I started doing this podcast. And so I keep adding places because I hear these incredible stories and it's hard not to. Not that I want to have the same experience that you do. I never will, but I want to
Yeah.
experience it for myself. So,
Yeah, I would say India is one of those places that I would get like a tour guide, and just for like the ease of it. I mean, you can go off the beaten path, but I think that the language barrier is really hard. And it's just been more enjoyable when we've gotten, someone like a local to help us kind of cater to us as we moved around there, where we haven't, we will do separate tours, whereas in India we would get like a guide.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some of the things, I mean, you think about it, like one of the places in between Agra and Jaipur was like this king, and he had three different palaces because he had married a Muslim, a Christian, and
Like a,
a Hindi woman. Like, and that was like, you're like, oh, that was a strategy, right? Like,
wow.
and so each one of the palaces were done in that style, right? Like, it was just like really beautiful to see them kind of like side by side, right? Like what the Christian, beauty, or the, architecture of what they wanted versus like the Muslim, symbols and things that they needed, and the different, prayer rooms and those kinds of things. And you could see them side by side, essentially. I mean, not really side by side, but in the same, vicinity.
Yeah. That's really cool. And
Hmm.
I'm not going to knock you for saying Philadelphia. Pittsburghers are not fans of Philadelphians, but it's
Sorry,
okay. No,
sorry.
it's okay. It's okay. I mean, and we're getting close to the end here. And honestly, if there's anything that pops in your head, please feel free. I don't put any limits on anything. I leave it up to you as far as length of time that we go. But I have to ask you a question that's not in my final five. What is this thing about packing snacks?
Ah, um, oh gosh, I'm like an expert at packing snacks. This goes back to like the budgeting piece. Like, so when we were like really on a budget, I refuse to buy like airport food because it's so
Mm-hmm.
expensive and so terrible. And so, yeah, so then I started, like packing my own snacks and, would do like a charcuterie board almost. So when you get, your glass of wine, I would like have this whole like curated snack to go with like what we were gonna drink on the plane. My kids don't like necessarily like it as much as like my husband does, but yeah, I do pack a lot of snacks. And then even when we're there, we do like to go to grocery stores. One of the coolest things you can do when you're abroad is like go into the grocery store and like see what kind of flavored chips they have.
Yes.
And so that's like, even if you aren't like gonna make a meal, you can always go and get snacks. Or like in Italy, we went and there was like truffle season, and truffles were like next to nothing. And I mean, they were still expensive, but not nearly as expensive as they were like um, elsewhere. Uh, and so I always go into grocery stores and grab things too because, yeah, it's just my budget traveling hack that, always have some snacks on hand. You just never know. I mean, I've even done it here where we've gone to Pictured Rocks up in Lake Superior and taken a sunset cruise, and I have, to go wines and, cheese and crackers in my purse on the ready.
I was going to say, like you said the word charcuterie, and it's like, I think meat and cheese. Are you bringing meat and cheese onto the airplane, and in what form, if you are?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, very quickly, right? Like it's usually just like cured like ham and some cheese. And then, you have to eat it pretty quickly so that
Yeah.
you're not importing it in. It's like, but yeah, nuts and dried fruit.
Oh yeah.
And I usually make these like roll ups if it's like early morning flights where, it's like a egg roll up. And so it's kind of like an omelet on the go. I've had people tell me like I should make like a YouTube channel on like packing for trips. So maybe that's my next
There you
thing.
go. Yeah. And
Mhm.
have you experienced street food anywhere in the world?
Yeah. Uh, Amritsar, India is known for its street
I
food.
I was going to
So,
mention that specifically, but I wasn't sure.
yeah. So I've been there enough times to where I know certain things. So there's always a risk of, getting sick from like a foodborne illness. And so I kind of have this like, I have my favorites that I go to. Pani Puri is one of them that I will like not say no to. I have like one in Chandigarh and one in Amritsar that I will go to. It's this, if you're not familiar with it, it's almost like this really light, I don't even know, is it rice, where they put potatoes and chickpeas in and then some chutneys in it, and you kind of take it in one bite, and it is so good. So we'll get that. We also get just like in Amritsar, it's not just street food, it's like just like takeaway food is really, which I think they might be one and the same. And so there's chalua, which is like a chickpea that we get that's really good. So yeah, I think I mean, we'll eat pretty much anywhere that, if it's on the street or food. In Tasmania, they have this really cute area where it's all on boats. So instead of like food carts, it's all boats, all tied up, which is really cute. And you can, it's all fresh fish, but it's kind of, it's, I guess, not street food then.
Yeah.
It's like
Oh,
oceanside
yeah.
food, but still kind of that same concept that all the food vendors are right in a row.
Yeah. That's really, really awesome. That's really
Mhm.
cool. Okay, so in the interest of respecting your time, I will head to the five questions, and feel free. Sometimes something pops up that maybe even just in answering, there's a story that goes along with it. Again, feel free. So
Yeah, I can't believe how fast this time went.
yeah, it's crazy how these almost every episode I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're at an hour. Okay.
Mhm.
So my first question is, of all of the places in the world that you have ever been, and we were just talking about food, and you kind of told me about an amazing meal that you had, but what is the and maybe that is the answer, but what is the most incredible meal experience that you've ever had outside of the home?
I'm gonna name 2 just because I it's funny how, like, I'll eat things when I'm on vacation, and I will not eat them at home. So, like, I'm not a big fish person or seafood person, but on vacation, I probably eat more fish than I do, in the whole year combined.
Wow.
So, I think what like, the fish in Ireland was amazing. In Spain, I ended up eating, like, snails. Never thought I would eat snails, but we just went to I'm gonna forget the name of it now, but in Florence, there's a Michelin star restaurant that we went to that was just amazing, and it was with, like, Gucci and, um oh, he's on the next has a Netflix special, but that was probably the most amazing thing. Like, even if you went and got the menu and said, "This is what we had," it was nothing to what was actually put in front of you. Like, there was 3 ingredients, and it was just, um it was, like, meticulously done. It was so beautiful, and then I don't know if you've ever seen The Bear, but there's, like, this point in The Bear where the restaurant is like, okay, they've done, like, research on every guest that is gonna be
Yes, it's
there.
based on 11 Medicine Park in New York City. I've
Yeah,
read
and I said at one point, like, everything's going too fast, and all of a sudden, everything, like it was like they heard me even though I told no one.
yeah.
It was like yeah, so it's just really cool. It's called Gucci Estero de Massimo. So it's a collaboration with Massimo,
Oh
who
wow.
has done a Netflix special and has been the number one restaurant in the world like a few times, and then did a partnership with Gucci, one of his friends. I'm imagining.
Wow. And so everything just slowed down all of a sudden.
Yeah, everything just slowed down, and I mean, it was like a dream.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was that, did you say two places or was that?
Yeah, I was just saying that like in Ireland, like the
Oh,
fish,
yeah. Okay.
like
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha.
how I don't eat things at home like I do in on vacation.
Okay. Excellent. I love that. And I'm going to have to look that place up. So, okay. Question number two. Some people don't have an answer for this, but most everyone does. No pressure. Of all of the places in the world that you have traveled, that you have been, even if I offered you a free trip, where would you turn it down and say, no, I don't want to go back?
I as much as I mean I did tell a story about Spain. I don't think Spain is on my radar to go back. I We're gonna go to Portugal in December, and we are going with some family that are gonna go to Spain after Portugal, and we still have the option to go to Portugal or to go to Spain, and I think we're just gonna stay in Portugal for the 3 weeks and explore Portugal really well. So, and one of that was just because the food, it's very, it's just meat forward,
Hmm.
and so it wasn't bad. It just is not my favorite.
Okay. That's fair. And that's the first time someone has said Spain. So I'm down for new answers. So I love it.
Mhm.
And I've heard great things about Portugal. So I hope you have a great time there.
Oh, good. I haven't been, so I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I haven't either, but I've heard many people talk about it and very, very highly. So excellent. Okay, so question three is turning that question around, and I think I might know one answer, maybe two. Of all of the places in the world that you have been, where do you absolutely have to go back?
Yeah, I think well, I'll throw this one in. So, my husband and I are going to Utah, and we went there 2 years ago to Moab, Utah. First time, went to Arches National Park and have been dreaming about it ever since and are headed back this fall. So, it just is, the hikes is just beautiful. The accommodation that we had, we loved. We loved the food there. So we're making it a reality. We're headed back there because we loved it so much.
Excellent. Adding that to Venice and India
Yes.
again? Is that?
Yeah, we'll probably go back to
Yeah.
India, and see some new places. But yeah, Italy is always on the list to
Yeah.
go.
Excellent. And that's one of the things about this podcast too is again, we're well over an hour into the episode and we didn't even touch on your travels in the US. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. So yeah, maybe we said maybe before the show we said maybe down the road if we have a good time we'll do it again. So maybe we can do that. Plus
Yeah.
you keep traveling, so you're going to have new
Right.
stories.
I might have some new places and new restaurants to
Yeah, no
try.
kidding. So question 4 is of all the places in the world that you have not been, not bucket list, where do you absolutely have to go?
Not bucket list.
Well, and I say it that way because my bucket list is massive. So, like, I want to get to all those places, but where's like the one or two places that just absolutely without question before you die you will go there?
Croatia. Croatia or Switzerland.
Wow. Okay. I don't think anyone's mentioned Croatia.
Uh,
Why?
yeah, it's been on my list. Even when we went to Venice, I thought, "Oh, we'll just pop over to Croatia quick."
Huh.
um, yeah, I don't even know why. I can't even say like, "Oh, I read a book about it," or yeah. So it just has been on the list.
Okay. Excellent. Nice. Again, I love new answers.
Mhm.
And question 5, you started to answer already, and you might have ruined it, unbeknownst to you. It's okay. Is where are you going? What do you have planned? So you already mentioned a couple.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to Utah in fall, and then we're going to Portugal for Christmas in December. I think our Portugal will be a little bit different because everything that I see is all about surfing and like the coast and the beaches, and we are going in December.
Mm,
Um, but I know we'll have some really great experiences here regardless. And then our spring break is still up for debate. So we've looked at Austria, thanks to Google Flights, is relatively inexpensive. And then we did an agro-tourist place in Italy. I kind of touched on that a little bit,
yeah.
but that would be like a really easy week-long spring break place to head to.
I was going to ask you, what does that mean, agrotourist?
Yeah, so they're like it was like a working farm. So they had I don't even remember how many acres of vines and olive trees. And so it was like a working farm that also had like accommodations and a restaurant. So usually there's accommodations when they say they're like an agritourism, they don't necessarily always have a restaurant, but and so you can stay and they had like horses and hiking and but then you're in this like olive and vine farm, uh, and it was really cool, really family friendly, pretty accessible to car to different locations. Some of them do a lot of wine. We did like an olive oil tasting and a cooking
Mm.
class and a garden tour, kind of all right there, so we didn't have to go anywhere.
Some people don't understand the varieties of olive oil that exist and the qualities of olive oil that exist. An olive oil tasting to some people might be like, oh, why would you do that? It can be incredible.
Yeah. Yep. It's I mean, even the color of the oils and um yeah, I learned a lot about it. Although I don't think I need to do another one. Like I felt like I just was like way too oiled up after that.
That might be the quote of the episode.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Anything before we end that you want to add or say?
No, just thanks so much for having me. This was so fun. It's fun to like kindle some of the memories from my traveling. And so thank you for reaching out and having me on the
Yeah,
show.
thank you for coming on and taking the time with me. I appreciate it very much. And thank you for being flexible. I think we were supposed to do this before, and, life events happen. And I believe we got pushed back, if I'm not mistaken. And so,
No
yeah, I
worries.
appreciate all of that. And I had a great time. And I'm going to check out the website more. I'm going to make sure I put everything in the show notes for everybody else. So, and so just good luck to you. And have safe travels and make some great memories throughout the rest of this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take
You
care.
too. And there's another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast in the books. Thank you so much for listening today. It was another great guest with some great stories, as always, and I hope that you will support all of the guests by checking out the show notes and going to their web pages, seeing any socials and projects that they may have going on. And please, again, I'll ask as always to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really does help to allow the podcast to grow and reach more people, and I appreciate you for doing that. Also, if you haven't done so, check out the website, whybpodcast.com, where you can find blog posts. If you'd like to be a guest, please register to be a guest on the site, and check out the merch page. There's some really cool stuff if you're interested in representing the pod, along with some other cool travel items and apparel that I'm working on every day as well. Join me again next week for another great guest with more incredible stories. New episodes drop every Sunday just after midnight Eastern Time. Until then, thank you for being here, and have a great day.